March 1859, Callahan Plantation, Mississippi. A father sits across from his 19-year-old son in a library that cost more than most men earned in a lifetime. 3 doctors have just delivered their verdict. The boy is sterile, underdeveloped, unfit for reproduction, cannot produce heirs. The father pours bourbon with steady hands. He has built an empire from nothing. 8,000 acres, 300 enslaved people, a Greek revival mansion with crystal chandeliers hanging from 15-foot ceilings. Everything a man could want except the one thing that matters: a legacy, an heir who can continue the bloodline. So he makes a decision that will set off a chain of events nobody saw coming. He looks at his son and says 5 words that change everything. I am giving you to Delilah, not as a wife, as breeding stock. The father has a plan. Take the strongest enslaved woman on the plantation. Pair her with a male slave from another property. Force them to produce children. Then, through legal manipulation, claim those children as heirs. Problem solved, except his son refuses, except that enslaved woman has other plans. Except what happens next becomes one of the most dangerous escapes in Mississippi history. A wealthy white heir and a black enslaved woman running 500 miles toward freedom together. And for over a century, this story was erased, until now. By the end of this video, you will know the horrifying truth about breeding farms that plantation owners created after 1808, when they could no longer import slaves from Africa. You will learn how one woman named Delilah refused to be treated like livestock and made a choice that should have gotten her killed. You will discover why this story was systematically removed from every textbook, every history book, every record they could find. And you will understand the direct connection between slave breeding and the reproductive injustice black women face today. This is not ancient history. Your great-great-grandmother might have been forced into these breeding schemes. Your ancestors resisted just like Delilah. This is your legacy, not victimhood, resistance. Everything you learned about slavery was incomplete. They taught you about cotton fields. They never taught you about breeding farms. They never told you that after 1808, when the international slave trade became illegal, plantation owners had to find a new source of slaves. So they turned enslaved women into factories. Human factories producing the next generation of unpaid labor. They called certain women proven breeders and sold them for 3 times the price of regular field hands. They kept meticulous records of conception dates and birth dates and projected profits from unborn children. They locked women in cabins with men they did not choose until pregnancy occurred. And then they erased all of it from history. But we have the records now. We have the testimonies. We have the truth, and after this video, you will never see American history the same way again. You will never wonder why the wealth gap exists. You will never question why black maternal mortality is 3 times higher than white women. You will know because the control of black women's bodies did not end with slavery. It just changed forms. Let me tell you about Thomas Beaumont Callahan. Born January 1840, during one of the coldest winters Mississippi had seen in decades. 2 months premature, so small the midwife told his father to prepare for the child's death. But his mother, Sarah Beaumont Callahan, refused to accept that diagnosis. She held him against her chest and said he will live. I can feel his heart beating. It is weak, but it is fighting. And she was right. He survived. But surviving is not the same as thriving. At 1 month, he weighed barely 6 pounds. At 6 months, he could not hold up his own head. At 1 year, when other babies were standing and taking first steps, Thomas could barely sit upright. The doctor said his premature birth had stunted his development in ways that would affect him for life. His mother died when he was 6 years old. Yellow fever epidemic of 1846 that swept through Mississippi, killing thousands. The day before she died, she called him to her bedside, her skin the color of old parchment, her eyes yellowed and distant. She whispered to him, "Thomas, you are going to face challenges your whole life. People will underestimate you. They will pity you. They will dismiss you. But you have something more valuable than physical strength. You have your mind, your heart, your soul. Do not let anyone make you feel less than whole." She died the next morning. He did not fully understand her words until years later. His father, Judge William Callahan, was everything Thomas was not. 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, voice that could silence a courtroom with a single word. Started as a poor lawyer from Alabama, married into the Beaumont family's modest plantation. Through shrewd investments and strategic land acquisitions, transformed 800 acres into an 8,000-acre cotton empire. Callahan Plantation sat on high bluffs overlooking the Mississippi River. 15 miles south of Natchez, in what was considered the richest soil in the South. Behind the mansion stretched the working plantation, cotton gin, blacksmith shop, carpentry workshop, smokehouse, laundry, kitchen building, overseer's house, and beyond all that, the quarters. Rows of small cabins where 300 enslaved people lived in conditions that contrasted sharply with the mansion's luxury. Thomas grew up in this world of extreme wealth built on extreme brutality. Though as a child he did not understand the full implications. By age 19, Thomas stood 5 feet 2 inches tall, the height of a boy entering puberty rather than a young man. His frame was slight, perhaps 110 pounds, bones so delicate that one doctor commented he had the skeleton of a bird. His chest caved inward slightly, a condition called pectus excavatum from ribs that never properly formed. His hands trembled constantly, a fine tremor that made simple tasks like writing or holding a teacup require intense concentration. His eyesight was terrible, required thick spectacles that magnified his pale blue eyes to an almost comical size. His voice had never fully deepened, remained in that awkward range between boy and man. His hair was fine and light brown, already thinning despite his youth. But the worst part, the part that would ultimately define his fate, was his complete lack of masculine development. He had no facial hair except a few wispy strands on his upper lip that he shaved more out of hope than necessity. His body was hairless, smooth as a child's, and the doctor's examinations had confirmed what his father suspected. His reproductive organs were severely underdeveloped, rendering him sterile. The examination began shortly after his 18th birthday in January 1858. His father arranged for him to meet a potential bride, Martha Henderson, daughter of a wealthy planter from Port Gibson. The meeting was a disaster. Martha took one look at Thomas and could not hide her disgust. She made polite conversation for exactly 15 minutes before claiming a headache and leaving. Thomas overheard her telling her mother as they departed, "Father cannot seriously expect me to marry that child. He looks like he would break in half on our wedding night." After that humiliation, Judge Callahan summoned Dr. Harrison. Dr. Samuel Harrison was Natchez' most prominent physician, a Yale-educated man in his 50s who specialized in what he called matters of masculine health and heredity. He arrived at Callahan Plantation on a humid February morning, carrying a leather medical bag and an air of clinical detachment. Judge Callahan left them alone in his study. Dr. Harrison had Thomas undressed completely, then conducted the most humiliating hour of Thomas's life. Measured him: height, weight, chest circumference, limb length. Examined every inch of his body, making notes in a small leather journal. He paid particular attention to Thomas's groin, manipulating his underdeveloped testicles, commenting aloud about their size and consistency. Significantly below normal, the doctor muttered while writing. Prepubertal in appearance and texture. When he finished, he called Judge Callahan back into the room. "Judge Callahan," Dr. Harrison said, settling into a leather chair, "I will be direct. Your son's condition is not merely constitutional frailty. He suffers from what we call hypogonadism, a failure of the sexual organs to develop properly. This was likely caused by his premature birth and subsequent developmental delays." Judge Callahan's face remained impassive. What does this mean for his future, for marriage and continuation of the family line? Dr. Harrison glanced at Thomas, then back at his father. "Judge, the likelihood of your son producing offspring is virtually non-existent. The testicular tissue is insufficient for spermatogenesis, the production of viable seed. His hormone production is clearly deficient, as evidenced by his lack of secondary sexual characteristics. Even if he were to marry, consummation might prove difficult, and conception would be, in my professional opinion, impossible." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Impossible. Judge Callahan was silent for a long moment. "You are absolutely certain?" "As certain as medical science allows. I have seen perhaps a dozen cases like this in my career. None produce children." "I see. Thank you, Dr. Harrison. I will have your payment sent to your office." But Judge Callahan was not satisfied with one opinion. A week later, Dr. Jeremiah Blackwood arrived from Vicksburg. He was younger than Dr. Harrison, more aggressive in his examination, rougher in his handling of Thomas's body. But his conclusion was identical: severe hypogonadism with associated sterility. The condition is permanent and untreatable. The third doctor came from New Orleans in March. Dr. Antoine Marier, a Creole physician who had studied in Paris and spoke with a thick French accent. He was the gentlest of the three, apologizing for the invasive nature of the examination. But his verdict was the same: "Je suis désolé, but your son cannot father children. The development, it is arrested. Nothing can be done." 3 doctors, 3 examinations, 3 identical conclusions. Thomas Beaumont Callahan was sterile, unfit for breeding, incapable of continuing the family line. The news spread through Mississippi's planter society with the speed and thoroughness of gossip among people who had nothing better to do than discuss each other's business. Judge Callahan made no effort to keep it secret. What would be the point? Any woman who agreed to marry Thomas would need to know. Better to be honest up front than face recriminations later. The Hendersons withdrew their daughter from consideration immediately. The Rutherfords, who had expressed interest in introducing Thomas to their younger daughter, sent a polite note declining. The Prestons, the Montgomerys, the Fairfaxes, all the prominent families who might have overlooked his physical frailty for the sake of the Callahan fortune, suddenly found reasons why their daughters were unsuitable or already promised elsewhere. But it was not just the private rejections that hurt. It was the public comments. Thomas overheard Mrs. Harrison at church in April. Such a pity about the Callahan boy. The judge has all that wealth and no proper heir to leave it to. Makes you wonder what the point is. At a dinner party Judge Callahan hosted in May, one of the guests, drunk on fine whiskey, said loudly enough for Thomas to hear from the hallway, "It is nature's way, is it not? The weak ones are not supposed to reproduce. Keeps the stock healthy." A visiting planter from Louisiana examining a horse Judge Callahan was selling commented, "Fine animal, strong lines, good conformation, proven stud. Not like that son of yours, eh? Sometimes breeding just fails." Each comment was a knife. But Thomas had learned to show no reaction. What would be the point? They were right in the terms they understood. He was defective merchandise, a failed investment, a dead-end branch on the family tree. Judge Callahan withdrew into himself during the spring and summer of 1858. He still ran the plantation with his usual efficiency, still served as county judge, still attended social functions. But at home he was increasingly distant, spending long hours in his study with bourbon and legal documents, working on something he would not discuss with Thomas. Thomas retreated into books. His father's library contained over 2,000 volumes, and he had read most of them by age 19. He particularly loved philosophy and poetry. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Keats, Shelley, Byron. He found solace in words written by men who had contemplated suffering and mortality and the human condition. But he also began exploring books his father did not know were in the library. Volumes that previous owners had left behind, or that had been accidentally included in lots purchased at estate sales. These included abolitionist literature that was technically illegal in Mississippi. Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, published in 1845. Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, published in 1852. Essays by William Lloyd Garrison and other Northern abolitionists. Thomas read these forbidden books late at night when the house was quiet, and they disturbed him profoundly. He had grown up accepting slavery as natural, as ordained by God, as beneficial to both master and slave. The idea that enslaved people were inferior, childlike, incapable of self-governance. This was what everyone around him believed and taught. But these books presented a different picture. Frederick Douglass wrote with intelligence and eloquence that matched any white author Thomas had read. He described the brutality of slavery, the whippings, the family separations, the sexual exploitation, the psychological torture of being treated as property. Uncle Tom's Cabin. Despite being fiction, depicted slavery's horrors with devastating emotional impact. Thomas began noticing things he had previously ignored. The scars on the backs of field hands, the way enslaved people's expressions went blank and subservient when white people approached. The children who looked suspiciously like his father's overseers. The women who disappeared from the fields for months, then returned without the babies they had obviously carried. But he did nothing with these observations. He was too weak, too dependent, too compromised by his own comfort to challenge the system. He told himself he was different from other slaveholders, that he treated enslaved people with more kindness. But kindness does not make slavery less evil. It just makes the enslaver feel better about participating in it. In September 1858, Judge Callahan made another attempt at finding Thomas a bride. He contacted families outside Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia. He lowered his standards, approaching families of lesser wealth and social standing. He offered increasingly generous dowries, guaranteeing that any woman who married Thomas would live in luxury and want for nothing. The responses were variations on a theme. Thank you for your generous offer, but Caroline is already promised to another. We appreciate your interest, but we do not feel it would be a suitable match. While your son seems a fine young man, we are looking for a situation with different prospects. That last one was particularly cruel. Different prospects was a polite way of saying a husband who can give us grandchildren. By December 1858, Judge Callahan had stopped trying. They ate dinner together in silence most nights. The clink of silver on china, the only sound in the massive dining room. Sometimes Judge Callahan would look at Thomas with an expression he could not quite read. Disappointment, certainly, but also something like desperation. The explosion came in March 1859. It was late evening, and Judge Callahan had been drinking more than usual. Thomas was in the library reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius when his father burst in. "Thomas, we need to talk." Thomas set down the book. "Yes, Father." Judge Callahan sat down heavily, bourbon sloshing in his glass. "I am 58 years old. I could die tomorrow or live another 20 years, but either way, I will die eventually. And when I do, what happens to all this?" He gestured vaguely at the room, the house, the plantation beyond. "The estate will go to our nearest male relative, I suppose. Cousin Robert in Alabama." Cousin Robert, Judge Callahan spat, is an incompetent drunk who has lost 2 small plantations to bad debt. He would sell this place within a year and drink away the profits. Everything I have built, everything my father built before me, would be gone. I am sorry, Father. I know this is not the situation you wanted. Sorry does not solve the problem. Judge Callahan stood up and began pacing. "For 18 months, I have tried everything. 18 months of searching for a wife who would accept you despite your condition. No one will. No one wants a husband who cannot produce heirs. That is the reality. I know. So I have had to think creatively, very creatively, about solutions that push the boundaries of convention." Something in his tone made Thomas uneasy. "What do you mean?" Judge Callahan stopped pacing and looked directly at him. "I am giving you to Delilah." Thomas stared at him, certain he had misheard. "I am sorry, what?" "Delilah, the field hand. I am giving her to you as your companion, your wife in practical terms." The words made no sense. "Father, you cannot possibly be suggesting." "I am not suggesting. I am telling you what is going to happen." His voice was hard now, the voice he used in court when pronouncing sentence. "No white woman will marry you. That is established fact. But the Callahan line needs to continue. The plantation needs heirs, even if those heirs are unconventional." The full horror of what he was proposing hit Thomas. "You want me too, with a slave woman?" "Father, that is, even if I could, which the doctors say I cannot. That is not how inheritance works. A child from a slave woman would not be your heir. They would be property. Unless I free them, unless I legally adopt them, unless I structure my will very carefully, which, as a judge and lawyer, I am uniquely qualified to do. This is insane. This is necessary." Judge Callahan sat down again, leaning forward. "Thomas, listen to me. I have thought this through from every angle. You cannot produce children. The doctors were unanimous about that. But children can be produced on your behalf. Delilah is strong, healthy, intelligent. I will arrange for her to be bred with a suitable male from another plantation. Strong stock, proven fertility, good physical specimens. The children she bears will legally be mine through documentation I will create. When I die, I will will them to you, along with papers freeing them and establishing them as your adopted heirs. They will inherit everything. You're talking about breeding human beings like livestock. I am talking about ensuring the continuation of this family and this plantation. Is it unconventional? Yes. Is it legally complex? Absolutely. But it is possible and it solves our problem. It is not my problem. Thomas stood up, his hands trembling more than usual. Father, what you are describing is evil. You want to use a woman's body without her consent to produce children who will be manipulated through legal fictions into becoming heirs. You are treating people like breeding stock, like animals. They are animals in the eyes of the law. Judge Callahan's voice rose to match his. Thomas, I understand you have been reading those abolitionist books. Yes, I know about them. I am not blind. You have filled your head with sentimental nonsense about the humanity of slaves, but the legal reality is that they are property. I own Delilah the same way I own this house or that chair, and I am choosing to use her in a way that solves a problem. And what does Delilah think about this? She will do what she is told. She is property, Thomas. Her opinion is irrelevant. Something in Thomas snapped. He had spent his entire life deferring to his father's authority, accepting his decisions, trying to make up for being a disappointing son. But this was too much. No. The word came out quietly but firmly. Judge Callahan blinked. What did you say? I said no. I will not be part of this. If you want to implement this obscene breeding scheme, you will do it without my participation or cooperation. You ungrateful. Judge Callahan stood up, his face reddening. Do you have any idea what I have sacrificed for you? The opportunities I have lost because I had to focus on finding solutions for my defective son? The social embarrassment of having an heir who cannot perform the one basic function required of him? I did not ask to be born this way, and I did not ask for a son who would end the family line. He threw his glass, which shattered against the fireplace. I am trying to find a solution, and you are throwing it back in my face out of some misguided moral superiority you learned from abolitionist propaganda. It is not propaganda to say that people should not be bred like animals. Father, if you cannot see the evil in what you are proposing, get out. Get out of my sight. Thomas left the library, his heart pounding, his whole body shaking. He went to his room, closed the door, sat on his bed trying to process what had just happened. His father wanted to use an enslaved woman as breeding stock to produce heirs that would be legally manipulated into inheriting his plantation, and he saw nothing wrong with this plan. In fact, he thought it was a clever solution to an intractable problem. Thomas could not let that happen. But what could he do? He had no authority over the plantation. He was 19 years old, physically weak, financially dependent on his father. He could not free Delilah. He did not own her. And even if he did, the legal process was complex and expensive. He could not help her escape. He barely knew her, had no connections to the Underground Railroad, would not know the first thing about arranging escape for a fugitive slave, but he could not do nothing. The next morning, still shaking from the confrontation and lack of sleep, Thomas made a decision. He needed to warn Delilah at minimum. She deserved to know what his father was planning. The quarters were located a quarter-mile behind the main house, down a dirt path lined with ancient oak trees. Thomas had rarely visited them before. It was not proper for the master's son to mingle with the enslaved. The few times he had been there were during Christmas distributions, when his father would hand out extra rations and cheap gifts to the people who made his wealth possible. The quarters consisted of 20 small cabins arranged in 2 rows. Each cabin housed between 6 and 10 people in conditions that contrasted sharply with the mansion's luxury. Rough pine plank walls, dirt floors, a single fireplace for heating and cooking, 1 or 2 small windows with wooden shutters but no glass. It was mid-morning on a Tuesday, which meant most of the field hands were out working. Only a few people were around. An elderly woman tending a cook fire, some children too young to work, a man with a bandaged leg sitting on a cabin step. They all stared at Thomas as he walked past. It was not common for white people to visit the quarters except the overseer on his rounds or his father on inspection tours. A frail young white man in fine clothes walking alone through the quarters must have looked completely out of place. Thomas asked the elderly woman which cabin belonged to Delilah. She looked at him suspiciously. "Why are you asking after Delilah, young master?" "I need to speak with her. It is important. She is out in the fields. Will not be back till sundown. I will wait." The woman's eyes narrowed, but she pointed to the 3rd cabin in the 2nd row. "That is hers. But I do not know what business you have with her." Thomas spent the day in uncomfortable limbo. He could not return to the main house. He and his father were not speaking. He could not wait in Delilah's cabin. That would be completely inappropriate. So he walked the grounds of the plantation, avoiding areas where his father might be, trying to formulate what he would say to Delilah when she returned. The sun was setting when he saw the field hands returning. They walked in loose groups, exhausted from 10 hours of labor under the March sun. Delilah was easy to spot. She was a head taller than most of the others, walking with a straight-backed posture despite obvious fatigue. She saw Thomas standing near her cabin and stopped. "Master Thomas." The other field hands stared, whispering to each other. This was highly unusual. The master's son waiting at a slave cabin. "Delilah, I need to speak with you. It is important." "May I?" He gestured toward her cabin. She glanced at the other workers, then nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." They entered the cabin. It was a single room about 12 by 14 feet, with a dirt floor and rough plank walls. A fireplace occupied one wall, cold now in the mild evening. 3 rough wooden pallets served as beds. Delilah shared the cabin with 2 other women who worked in the laundry. There was a crude table, 2 stools, a few cooking pots, some clothing hanging from pegs on the wall. This was where 3 human beings lived. The contrast between this and Thomas's bedroom in the mansion, with its 4-poster bed and imported furniture and soft carpets and walls lined with bookshelves, was staggering. Delilah stood uncertainly in the middle of the room. "Is something wrong, Master Thomas? Where to begin? How do you tell someone that your father is planning to use her as breeding stock?" "Delilah, I need to tell you something my father is planning, something that involves you." Her expression became carefully neutral, the look enslaved people adopted when dealing with white people who might mean danger. "Yes, sir." Thomas told her everything about his sterility, about his father's desperation for heirs, about the plan to breed her with a male slave from another plantation, about the legal machinations that would turn her children into his adopted heirs. As he spoke, he watched her face cycle through shock, horror, and then a kind of weary resignation. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she said, So the judge plans to use me like a broodmare. Yes, and I wanted you to know. I wanted to warn you so you could. I do not know. Prepare yourself. Resist if possible, though I know that is almost impossible given your situation. Why? She looked at him directly now, fear temporarily overcome by curiosity. Why are you telling me this, Master Thomas? Why do you care what happens to me? It was a fair question. Why did he care? He had lived his entire life benefiting from slavery without questioning it. He had worn clothes made by enslaved people, eaten food prepared by enslaved people, lived in luxury built on enslaved labor. What made this different? Because what my father is planning is wrong. Not just morally wrong in some abstract sense, but practically, specifically wrong in a way I cannot ignore anymore. You think slavery is wrong? There was skepticism in her voice. I think, Thomas struggled for words. I think I have been reading too much lately. Books that make me question things I have always accepted. And when my father laid out his plan, when he talked about you like you were livestock to be bred for his purposes, something in me could not accept it. But you still own slaves. Your father still owns me. Yes, and I do not have an answer for that contradiction. I am complicit in a system I am starting to understand is evil. But I could not let my father's plan happen without at least warning you. Delilah sat down on one of the stools, suddenly looking exhausted. Master Thomas, I appreciate the warning. Truly. But what am I supposed to do with this information? I cannot refuse. If the judge orders me bread, I will be bread. If I resist, I will be whipped until I comply, or sold to someone worse or killed. There is no escape from this. There might be. The words were out before Thomas had fully thought them through. She looked up. What? There might be a way out. I have been thinking about it all day. If you were to escape to where? We are in Mississippi. There are slave patrols everywhere. I have no papers, no money, no knowledge of the roads north. And I am a 6-foot-tall black woman. I am not exactly inconspicuous. I would be caught within a day and sold south, probably to a Louisiana sugar plantation where I would be worked to death within a few years. What if you had papers? What if you had money? What if you had someone to travel with who could deflect suspicion? She stared at him. Master Thomas, what are you suggesting? I am suggesting, Thomas took a deep breath. I am suggesting that maybe we both leave together. We go north. I have money. My mother left me a trust fund that I can access. Not a fortune, but enough to get us started somewhere. I can forge travel passes in my father's handwriting. We take a wagon and supplies, and we just go. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious. Master Thomas, if we are caught, do you know what would happen? You would be imprisoned for slave theft. I would be killed. They do not just whip runaway slaves in Mississippi, they make examples of them. Public hanging, sometimes worse. I know, but if we succeed, and if we somehow make it north, then what? You would be throwing away everything. Your inheritance, your social position, your family name. You would be poor. You would be an outcast. And for what? To help one slave escape when your father owns 300? It was the fundamental question. And Thomas did not have a good answer except the truth. Because I cannot save 300 people. But maybe I can save one. Maybe I can stop one evil thing from happening. And maybe that is better than doing nothing. Why me? You do not even know me. Because you are the one my father is planning to hurt. because I cannot stop him from continuing slavery, but I can try to stop him from breeding you like an animal. And because," he hesitated, "because I think maybe we both need to escape. You from slavery, me from a life of complicity in a system I am starting to realize I cannot morally accept." Delilah studied him with those intelligent eyes that had been trained to hide their intelligence. "You really mean this?" "Yes." "You would give up everything to help me escape?" "Yes. Even though you barely know me. Even though I am just one slave among millions. Even though it might not make any real difference in the grand scheme." "Yes. Because it would make a difference to you. And right now, that feels like the only thing I can actually control." She was quiet for a long time. Outside, Thomas could hear other enslaved people moving around preparing evening meals, settling in for the night. The sun had fully set now, and the cabin was lit only by faint moonlight through the window. Finally, Delilah said, "If we do this, and I am not saying yes, yet I am just saying if, we would need to be smart about it. We would need to plan carefully. The judge has connections everywhere in Mississippi. He would send people after us, I know, and we would need to move fast. If he is planning to bring in a male slave to breed me, that could happen any day. When would you want to leave? Give me 2 days to think about it, to prepare what little I have, to say goodbye to people in a way that does not alert suspicions." She stood up. "Master Thomas, I do not fully understand why you are doing this. Part of me thinks this is some kind of trap or cruel joke. But if you are sincere, if you really mean to help me escape, then I will take that chance, because you are right. What your father is planning is worse than the risk of running. I am sincere. I swear it. Then we leave in 2 days. Thursday night after everyone is asleep. Meet me at the stable at midnight. Bring money, supplies, and those forged travel passes. I will bring what little I have." Thomas nodded. Thursday night. She walked to the cabin door, opened it, then turned back. "Master Thomas. Thomas, if we do this, if we make it north, what then? What do you expect from me?" "Nothing. I expect nothing except that you would be free. What you do with that freedom is entirely your choice. You're not doing this expecting me to be grateful in certain ways, expecting me to be your mistress or companion or no, absolutely not. I am doing this because it is right, or at least less wrong than doing nothing. That is all." She studied him for another moment, then nodded. Thursday night. Do not be late and do not change your mind. Thomas left the quarters and walked back to the mansion in the dark, his heart pounding. What had he just agreed to? He was planning to steal his father's property because that is what Delilah was in the eyes of the law, property, and flee north with her. If they were caught, he would be imprisoned. Delilah would likely be killed. But if they succeeded, one person would be free. One woman would not be forced into the breeding scheme his father had planned. It was not saving the world. It was not ending slavery. But it was something. The next 2 days were agony. Thomas avoided his father as much as possible, taking meals in his room, claiming illness. Judge Callahan did not push the issue. They were still angry with each other, and he likely assumed Thomas needed time to come around to his plan. Thomas used those 2 days to prepare. He went to the bank in Natchez and withdrew nearly all of his trust fund, $800, a substantial sum. He packed a bag with clothes, books, and necessities. He studied maps of Mississippi and the roads north. He practiced his father's signature on travel passes, getting the loops and flourishes exactly right. He also wrote letters. One to his father explaining why he was leaving. One to Dr. Harrison thanking him for his professional care. One to the few friends he had over the years saying goodbye. The letter to his father was the hardest. Father, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I am leaving Mississippi and I will not be returning. I know this will anger you, disappoint you, and perhaps hurt you. For that, I am sorry. But I cannot be part of your plan for Delilah. I cannot participate in a scheme that treats human beings as breeding stock. You raised me to value education, reason, and moral principle. The education you provided has led me to conclusions you will not like. Slavery is evil, and our participation in it is wrong. I am not asking you to understand or approve. I am simply telling you that I have made my choice. The Callahan line may end with me, but it will end with whatever dignity I can salvage, rather than continue through the moral bankruptcy of your breeding scheme. I hope someday you will understand. Your son, Thomas. He sealed the letter and left it on his desk. Thursday night arrived. Thomas could not eat dinner. He lay in bed fully clothed, listening to the house settle into sleep. His father retired to his room around 10. The servants finished their evening duties by 11. By 11:30, the mansion was silent. At 1:45, Thomas grabbed his bag, crept downstairs, and slipped out through the kitchen door. The stable was dark, lit only by moonlight filtering through gaps in the walls. Thomas hitched up one of the smaller wagons, a 2-horse rig they used for local travel. He loaded his bag, some food he had stolen from the kitchen, blankets, and a canteen of water. At exactly midnight, Delilah appeared. She carried a small bundle. Everything she owned in the world, probably. Some clothes, maybe. A few personal items. That was it. 24 years of life reduced to one small bundle. "You came," she said quietly. "Did you think I would not?" I was not sure. Part of me thought this was all a dream or a trick. It is neither. Are you ready? She looked back at the quarters visible in the distance. As ready as I will ever be. They climbed into the wagon. Thomas took the reins. He had driven wagons before, though not often. Delilah sat beside him, her bundle in her lap. "Where are we going?" she asked as they started moving. "Northeast to start. We will avoid Natchez. Too many people who know me. We will head toward Vicksburg, then into Tennessee. From there, we will work our way to Ohio. Cincinnati has a large free black community. We can disappear there. That is at least 400 miles, closer to 500. It will take us 2 weeks, maybe more. We will travel mostly at night. Rest during the day in wooded areas off the main roads. You have thought this through. I had 2 days. I did my best." They rode in silence for a while. The plantation fell away behind them, and soon they were on the main road heading northeast. The night was clear, the moon bright enough to see by. Every sound made Thomas's heart race. Was that a patrol? Was that someone following them? But it was just wind, animals, the normal sounds of a Mississippi night. After an hour, Delilah spoke again. "Thomas, can I call you Thomas?" "Of course. We are not master and slave anymore. We are just 2 people trying to get north." "Thomas, I need to ask you something honestly. Why are you really doing this?" And I do not want the noble answer about stopping one evil. I want the real reason. Thomas thought about that as the horses plodded on. The real reason? I think I have spent my entire life being told I am defective, that I am less than a real man because my body does not work right, that I am worthless because I cannot produce heirs. And I have internalized that. I have believed it I do not see what that has to do with me. It has everything to do with you. Because my father looked at me and saw defective breeding stock. And he looked at you and saw useful breeding stock. And I realized we are both just commodities to him, both reduced to our reproductive capacity or lack of it. And I thought, what if we are both more than that? What if our worth is not determined by whether we can produce children for someone else's benefit? Delilah was quiet for a moment. That is the most honest thing any white person has ever said to me. Thomas glanced at her. I am sorry it took me 19 years and a breeding scheme to figure it out. She almost smiled. Better late than never, I suppose. They traveled through the night, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and Callahan Plantation. By dawn, they had covered nearly 30 miles. Thomas guided the wagon off the main road into a dense patch of forest. They would rest here during the day. Too dangerous to travel in daylight. Too many people who might ask questions. A young white man traveling with a tall black woman. Even with forged papers, it would raise suspicions. They took turns sleeping, one always on watch. When Thomas woke in the afternoon, Delilah was sitting against a tree looking at the sky through the branches. He sat beside her. What are you thinking about? She did not look at him. I am thinking about my mother. She was sold when I was 8. I never saw her again. I do not even know if she is alive. I am thinking about my brother. He was sold when he was 12. I was 10. The overseer caught him learning to read from a white child. They sold him to a plantation in Louisiana. I heard he died there 2 years later, worked to death in the cane fields. He was 14. I am thinking about all the people I am leaving behind, my friends, the only family I have left. And I am thinking that I might never see them again. But I am also thinking that if I stayed, if I let the judge breed me like an animal, I would never be able to look at myself the same way. So I am choosing this. Freedom or death, nothing in between. Thomas did not know what to say to that. He had given up wealth and social position. But Delilah was giving up everyone she loved, the only community she had ever known. The risk she was taking was so much greater than his. I am sorry, he finally said. For what? For being part of a system that made you have to make this choice. For benefiting from your enslavement my whole life. For not waking up sooner. She looked at him then. You are awake now. That counts for something. They traveled like that for 8 weeks, mostly at night, hiding during the day. The forged papers Thomas carried claimed he was transporting his property, Delilah, from Mississippi to Kentucky to be sold. It was a thin cover story, but it worked. The few times they were stopped by patrols, Thomas's upper-class accent and fine clothes deflected suspicion. A wealthy young planter transporting a slave north for sale. Nothing unusual about that, but every encounter left them shaking. One wrong question. One skeptical patrol officer. One person who recognized Thomas. And it would all be over. They passed through the northeastern corner of Mississippi into Tennessee. The landscape changed gradually. Hills became more pronounced, forests thicker. They avoided major towns, stuck to back roads, bought supplies from small general stores where the owners asked few questions. Thomas's $800 went faster than he had hoped. Food, lodging when they risked staying at an inn, bribes when necessary. By the time they reached southern Ohio in early May, they had less than $200 left. But they had made it. 500 miles. 2 months. Cincinnati sat on the Ohio River. the border between slave state Kentucky and Free State Ohio. The city had a large free black community. Nearly 4,000 free black people lived there. It also had active abolitionist networks, underground railroad conductors who helped fugitive slaves. When Thomas and Delilah arrived in Cincinnati on May 10, 1859, they looked like what they were: exhausted, frightened, running from something. Thomas found a boarding house in the Over-the-Rhine neighborhood that would take them, no questions asked. 2 rooms, one for him, one for Delilah. The landlady looked at them with knowing eyes but said nothing. Cincinnati had seen plenty of runaways. For the first week, they barely left their rooms, too afraid that someone would recognize them, that Judge Callahan had sent slave catchers after them. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 meant that even in free Ohio, Delilah could be captured and returned to Mississippi. But slowly, they began to venture out. Thomas found work as a legal clerk. His education and knowledge of law made him valuable even if he could not reveal his true identity or background. Delilah found work as a seamstress. Her strong hands that had picked cotton now sewed dresses for Cincinnati's middle-class women. They lived simply, frugally, saving every penny. In August 1859, Thomas and Delilah married in a small ceremony at a black church. It was illegal in Mississippi for a white man and black woman to marry. Would remain illegal there until 1967, over a century later. But in Ohio, in that moment, they could choose each other freely. Not master and slave. Not breeding stock and defective heir. Just 2 people who had escaped together and decided to build a life together. But hold that thought. Because before we go further into Thomas and Delilah's story, we need to understand something crucial. This was not an isolated incident. Judge Callahan's breeding scheme was not the evil plan of one twisted man. It was standard practice. After 1808, when the international slave trade became illegal, plantation owners across the South systematically turned enslaved women into human breeding farms. And they erased almost all evidence of it from history. Let me show you how widespread this really was. In 1808, the United States Constitution's 20-year protection of the international slave trade expired. Congress immediately banned the importation of slaves from Africa. This created a problem for plantation owners. Where would new slaves come from? The answer was domestic breeding, forced reproduction. The numbers tell the story. In 1808, there were approximately 1 million enslaved people in the United States. By 1860, there were nearly 4 million. Natural increase alone cannot account for that growth. Systematic breeding programs were implemented across the South. Enslaved women became what historians now call reproductive raw material. Let me be specific about how this worked. Plantation owners advertised enslaved women like breeding cattle. Auction catalogs described women as prime breeding age, proven fertility, good hips for childbearing. These women sold for 300 to 500% more than regular field hands. Why? Because the children they produced had monetary value. Owners calculated the profit this way. One woman producing a child every 2 years equals 10 to 15 additional slaves over her lifetime. Each enslaved child was worth $400 to $600 by age 10. So one breeding woman could generate $40,000 to $100,000 in new human property over 20 years. That is equivalent to $1.2 million to $3 million in today's money. This was not about family or community. This was industrial-scale human manufacturing. Plantation ledgers from the 1850s show the cold calculations. Owners tracked women's menstrual cycles, recorded conception dates, projected delivery dates, expected market value of unborn children. One Mississippi plantation ledger from 1852 states, 22 births this year. 3 died in infancy, 19 to market by 1860. Projected profit, $7,600. Now let me tell you how they forced this. Owners selected what they called strong stock males to impregnate multiple women. These men, treated as breeding studs, were forced to impregnate 5 to 10 women per year. Women were locked in cabins with selected males until conception occurred. Recorded in ledgers like livestock breeding records. Bred Delilah to Big John, March 1859. Expected delivery, December 1859. Some plantations used incentive systems, extra food rations, less work, small gifts for women who bore many children. A few even promised freedom after bearing 10 or more children, though these promises were rarely enforced. But most plantations used punishment, not incentives. Women who resisted were beaten, starved, confined. And here is something they definitely did not teach you in school. Enslaved women fought back through reproductive control. They chewed cotton root, which acted as an abortifacient. They used medicinal herbs to regulate menstrual cycles and prevent pregnancy. They practiced abstinence when possible. Some chose infanticide rather than allow their children to be born into slavery. The punishment for possessing cotton root was severe whipping. But women took that risk because bodily autonomy was worth it. Let me give you 3 more specific examples to prove this was systematic policy, not isolated incidents. First, Mississippi breeding farms in the 1850s. Entire plantations in the Mississippi Delta were designated specifically as breeding operations. Women were removed from field work at age 15 or 16 and assigned solely to reproduction. Overseers kept precise records, conception dates, birth dates, survival rates, sale prices. Children were separated from mothers at age 8 to 10 and sold to Deep South cotton plantations. One surviving plantation ledger shows the cold math. 22 births this year. 3 died in infancy. 19 to market by 1860. Projected profit, $7,600. Second, Virginia earned a reputation as a breeding state. Between 1790 and 1860, Virginia exported over 300,000 enslaved people to the Deep South. Upper South plantations shifted from tobacco farming, which was declining, to slave breeding as their primary profit source. Some Virginia plantations kept 50 or more women of breeding age specifically for reproduction. Newspaper advertisements openly stated, "Negroes for sale, 25 prime breeding age wenches, proven fertile." Third, South Carolina stock farms. Low country plantations called enslaved quarters. Stock farms in private correspondence. They selected prize bull males and hired them out to multiple plantations for breeding. Payment system worked like this. Plantation A pays Plantation B $50 to $100 to borrow a male slave for breeding season. Women who resisted were chained in breeding sheds until compliant. Do you see the pattern now? This was not a few isolated incidents. This was systematic, industrial, calculated. They turned black women's wombs into factories. They turned black men into breeding studs. They calculated profit in unborn children. This was the economics of slavery after 1808. And they erased almost all of it from textbooks. Why? Because acknowledging breeding farms reveals that slavery was not just labor exploitation. It was systematic sexual violence. It was rape as economic policy. After the Civil War, the white South wanted to portray slavery as benevolent paternalism. The happy slave narrative. Slaves were like family. Masters were kind. This mythology required erasing the sexual violence, required hiding the breeding farms, required pretending that enslaved women were not routinely raped to produce profitable children. Many plantation ledgers were deliberately burned during Reconstruction. Those that survived were hidden in private collections not accessible to historians until the 1960s and 70s. Family histories like Thomas and Delilah's exist only in oral tradition, scattered land records, church documents. Educational suppression has been systematic and ongoing. Breeding farms were not mentioned in any Mississippi textbook until 2018. Most Americans learned about forced reproduction from the movie 12 Years a Slave in 2013, not from school. Textbooks use sanitized language. They say slave owners encouraged large families instead of slave owners forced breeding. They say natural increase instead of systematic reproductive exploitation. They say Sally Hemings was Thomas Jefferson's mistress instead of Thomas Jefferson repeatedly raped his enslaved property for decades. From 1865 to the 1950s, slavery was taught as an economic system with sexual violence completely omitted. The 1960s and 70s civil rights movement forced some acknowledgement, but breeding operations were still rarely mentioned. Through the 1980s to 2000s, most textbooks might mention rape by individual owners, but did not explain systematic breeding as industrial policy. It took until 2013 when 12 Years a Slave forced public awareness. And even now, some states have passed laws banning teaching about racial topics that might make students feel discomfort. Teaching about breeding farms is now illegal in some jurisdictions because it might make white students feel bad. The erasure continues right now in 2026. Media manipulation completed the cover-up. Gone with the Wind in 1939 portrayed slavery as genteel and romantic. The Mammy character happy, loyal, sexless. The complete opposite of reality, where enslaved women were treated as breeding stock. This film shaped American understanding of slavery for 50 years. When slaves escaped, newspapers called it Negro uprising or theft of property. When whites helped slaves escape, newspapers called them traitors, Negro lovers, insane. Thomas and Delilah's escape likely reported in Natchez papers as property theft by deranged son. No records survive because they were deliberately destroyed. Academic gatekeeping persisted until the 1970s. Most historians were white men who avoided researching sexual violence in slavery. Black historians like Darlene Clark, Hine, and Deborah Gray White finally revealed breeding farms in the 1980s and 90s. But their work took decades to reach mainstream textbooks. This erasure was not accidental. It was systematic, institutional, designed to protect the mythology that slavery was benevolent. Now let me connect this directly to your life today. Pause right here. If this truth shocked you, comment truth below. Hit that like button if you are tired of the lies. Share this with someone who needs to wake up, because they will not teach this in schools. We must teach each other. Every share is resistance against erasure. This is not ancient history. This explains why Black maternal mortality is 3 times higher than white women today, Why black women's pain gets dismissed by doctors. A belief dating back to slavery, era pseudoscience, that black people feel less pain. Consider the timeline. 1865 slavery ends. Forced breeding ends. 1900 to 1970, eugenics movement targets black women for forced sterilization. Over 60,000 black women sterilized without consent, often told they were getting appendectomies, called Mississippi appendectomies in the South. The logic shifted. We do not need black labor anymore, so stop them from reproducing. Today, we see forced C-sections, forced contraception in prisons, black women sterilized in ICE detention in 2020. For 400 years, white supremacy has controlled black women's wombs. During slavery, forced to breed. During Jim Crow, forced not to breed. Today, denied bodily autonomy through medical racism. Same tool, same goal, control. Delilah chose escape to claim bodily autonomy. Her womb is mine. Her body is mine. Her children will be free, or she would have none. That resistance continues today. Now the wealth gap. Median white household wealth, $188,000. Median black household wealth, $24,000. Gap, $164,000. Not because black people do not work hard, because they stole $100 trillion plus from us. Let me calculate Delilah's stolen wealth. And her children, if forced to breed, would produce 10 to 15 enslaved people over her lifetime, each worth $400 to $600 by age 10. $4,000 to $9,000 stolen from her. Her grandchildren born into slavery would produce 50 to 100 more, $20,000 to $60,000 stolen. By 1865, one breeding woman could have 100 plus enslaved descendants, $40,000 to $100,000 in stolen wealth. $1.2 million to $3 million today. Multiply that by 4 million enslaved women. That is trillions stolen through reproductive exploitation alone. If Thomas and Delilah had stayed, their children would have been born slaves, even with Judge Callahan's plan to free them, rarely enforced. Their descendants would own nothing. Instead, they escaped. Adopted 3 children formerly enslaved. Sarah Frederick Liberty. Raised them in freedom. All 3 became professionals. Sarah teacher, educating freed people. Frederick doctor, treating black patients denied white hospital care. Liberty lawyer, fighting for civil rights. Freedom created generational wealth. They tried to prevent that. Reparations argument. They say slavery was long ago, but breeding farms operated until 1865. Your great-grandparents' lifetime. Forced sterilization continued until 1973. Your parents' lifetime. Redlining ended in 1968. Your lifetime. The theft continues through mass incarceration. Modern slavery via the 13th Amendment exception for criminal punishment. Prison labor pays 13 cents to 52 cents per hour. 2.3 million incarcerated. 40% black, though only 13% of population. Police brutality traces it back to slave patrols formed 1704. Same function. Control black bodies, prevent escape. Same tools. Violence, intimidation, legal immunity. Gentrification equals modern land theft. Black families finally own property post-civil rights. Rising property taxes and urban renewal force them out. Same pattern as Reconstruction. Black people build wealth. White supremacy destroys it. Your grandmother struggled because of this. Your mother rented instead of owned because of this. This is your stolen inheritance. You are not victims. You are survivors of genocide, descendants of warriors, heirs to stolen empires. Your ancestors chewed cotton root to abort forced pregnancies, fought doctors experimenting on them without anesthesia, escaped like Delilah risking public execution, built Black Wall Street, elected black senators, created HBCUs, resisted lynching through armed self-defense. That strength is in your DNA. Your poverty was not your fault. It was calculated, systematic, stolen. From 1808 to 1865, stolen labor and reproduction. 1865 to 1968, stolen through Jim Crow laws, redlining, lynching, race massacres. 1968 to now, stolen through mass incarceration, medical debt, predatory lending. The system needed your complicity. That is why they passed laws. Interracial marriage bans, literacy bans, breeding farms. They needed these because resistance was always possible. Thomas proved it. Delilah proved it. You can prove it. Your ancestors were millionaires in human potential. They built empires from nothing, fought armies and won. Did all this while facing terrorism. Delilah was 6 feet tall, brilliant, powerful. They tried to reduce her to breeding cow. She said no. That is your ancestor, your legacy. Imagine your family if your ancestors had not resisted. 100 plus descendants enslaved or killed. Instead, 100 plus descendants freed. Teachers, doctors, lawyers, activists. God preserved you through Middle Passage, 20 to 30% mortality, through slavery, through Jim Crow, through forced sterilization. You are here, not for comfort, not to forget. God kept you alive to reveal truth. Demand justice, reclaim what was stolen, the night before escape. Delilah told Thomas, I have been praying for freedom since I was 10. Maybe you are God's answer. Thomas replied, maybe you are God's answer to me, showing me courage. You are here to tell truth they buried. Demand reparations for stolen wealth. Fight reproductive injustice. Build generational wealth they tried to prevent. Pass this legacy to your children. Honor your ancestors' resistance. This is your divine assignment. Subscribe to this channel. We are exposing hundreds more stories like this. Next week, Black millionaires killed in Tulsa, 1921. Then Black sheriffs fighting KKK with guns, 1920s. Every week, truth they buried. Tell your children this story about Delilah, about Thomas. That resistance is always possible. Do not let them grow up believing lies. Do not let them think poverty is their fault. Download this video. Save it. Back it up. They delete Black history from YouTube schools' textbooks. We must preserve our own history. Every download, defiance against erasure. Comment below, where are you from? Let us connect, build, organize. Thomas and Delilah escaped alone. Imagine if they had a network. We have internet now. Build that network. Use it. This affects your life today. Wealth gap, maternal mortality, mass incarceration, all connected to breeding farms, slave control. Now you know. What will you do? This is not revenge. Truth and justice. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for preserving this truth when they tried to bury it. Thank you for Delilah, who chose bodily autonomy over obedience. Thank you for Thomas, who chose humanity over inheritance. Thank you for countless enslaved women who chewed cotton root, who resisted breeding, who said no with their bodies. We pray justice for every woman forced into breeding farms, for 60,000 Black women forcibly sterilized, for mothers still separated from children by carceral system, restoration of 100 trillion plus in stolen wealth, healing of generational trauma. Father, bless those watching. Strengthen them to seek truth. Give courage to demand justice, wisdom to build generational wealth, determination to pass legacy to children. Protect from those wanting history erased. We pray in Jesus' name, who said truth will set you free. Let your people be free. Amen. Walk in truth. Demand justice. Remember ancestors. You are powerful, worthy, owed. Until next time, build wealth. Demand reparations. Remember resistance.